Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Debbie from Triangle Nursery, and in today's video we're going to have a bit of festive fun, creating a charming little Christmas tree using dried oranges, fresh flowers and seasonal greenery. This is such a joyful project, great for the whole family to get stuck into, and a perfect alternative if you're looking for something different from the usual wreath, garland or even table centrepiece. So whether you want to use it as a handmade gift, a creative workshop activity, or just to decorate your home, this design brings all the festive feelings. I'll be showing you a couple of different options, one version using dried oranges with festive foliage and another using fresh flowers like roses, spray roses and carnations. You can follow along and choose the style that suits you best. So before we get started, let's walk through the tools, equipment and plant materials that I'm using in today's demonstration. So firstly, I'm going to start with the base. So this is a floral foam cone. Now this is a wet cone. I have pre-soaked it. You could, if you wanted to, use a dried cone if you're using all dried materials, but obviously we want with the fresh products for them to be able to hydrate. So that's our first most important tool that we're using. Then I've got scissors. I've got some stub wires here that I've actually made into little hairpins. Then I've got my single stem beautiful red roses and some spray roses that I've pre-cut just into individual heads. And then I have some small pieces of tree ivy, again that I've pre-cut to sort of more manageable sized pieces. Also you can see the two different designs that we've created previously. So this is the one with the dried green oranges and spruce, and this is all tree ivy. And then we've created a star for the top of the tree from aluminium wiring. So let's begin. So before I start constructing, just a little word to the wise. Because you've got a soaked cone here, you're going to get some residual water forming below. So what I'd suggest is you place it on a suitable container. Now I've actually used a glass cylinder vase here, lined with moss, and then sat the cone on top of that. But you could use a plastic dish, you could use even one of your saucers from the kitchen if you wanted to. Just something that's going to actually collect any residual water and obviously protect damage to the furniture that you stand the design on. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm going to start at the base of the design with the larger headed roses, and then we'll graduate up to using the smaller spray roses further up the design. Cutting the stems at a sharp angle. And then any small gaps in between, I'm just going to use some of the tree ivy to bridge that little tiny gap. Now the lovely thing about the tree ivy is you can manipulate it so that it covers quite a good surface area. So I'm going to continue doing that until I've used all of the larger roses up around the base. Now you obviously will need to hydrate the design, so by having it in a reasonably good reservoir to collect the water, you're not going to then be too concerned about misting it and actually adding water with either a small bottle or a small watering can, just so that the flowers and the plant materials within that keep hydrated and drinking, so therefore prolonging the shelf life of the design. Now if you're creating this using mostly dried products and a long-lasting seasonal foliage like this design, for example, you could create that sort of 10 days before the big day, because that's going to last quite well. But if you are making it with fresh products, fresh roses like we are here, I would advocate making it up as close to the day as you possibly can. Then you'll get maximum shelf life. You want it ideally to last from Christmas through to the New Year if you can. So yeah, leave it as late as possible before constructing. So when you have constructed it and it's ready to go, place it in a cool, dark environment until it's required. That way you'll preserve the longevity as much as you can. And ideally, if you're bringing it into a home environment and it's a warm, so obviously we all have our heating on at Christmas time, if it is a warm environment that it's going into, one little tip of how to make it last a little bit longer is actually remove it from its position in the house and put it outside somewhere cool and dark, and then bring it back in again the next day. So there we have our first layer of roses. Now you can see there's a natural gap here where the two round blooms meet. So my next placement is going to be in between that gap. So it's a seamless addition. And then the same just here. So again, you've got where the two round heads meet together, you've got that little gap there to place the next rose in. Then as we graduate up to the top of the tree, we're going to add smaller blooms. So now I'm going to start on the spray roses. Now to start with, you're going to need to bring the spray roses out to the same level as the single bloomed roses. Now what you can do is adjust the stem length to achieve that. And then as we progress further up, the stems will get shorter as we get closer to the cone. There we go. So you can see how we're building up this design. And then what I'll do is I'll continue working around the cone until we get close to the top, and then I'll show you how to finish. So just a little tip, when you're placing your plant materials into the cone, place them at an angle, so the stem's pointing downwards, because as the cone gets narrower further up to the top, if you place the stems in more of a horizontal position, it's actually going to protrude outside of the cone, so it's not going to drink, so it won't take up hydration. So by placing the stems at a sharp angle going downward, not only will the plant materials still be able to drink, but also it progresses up the stem more effectively. Now you can obviously adapt the colour scheme to suit your Christmas decor, and you could use pretty much any variety of flower, but just do bear in mind you want to graduate. So you want smaller stems at the top progressing to larger stems at the bottom. So spray chrysanthemums would be ideal. They have a really long shelf life, and you could cut all the heads off and then grade them to large, medium and small, starting with large at the bottom, then medium, then small as you progress to the top. Spray carnations would work. You could use large carnations at the base and then in the same colour spray cars all up to the top. And obviously they're quite a cost-effective bloom to use and have a long shelf life. So there are loads of materials that you could use, and as I said before, the only limitation really is your imagination. You could adorn with pine cones and ribbons as well. Little tiny bows made out of coordinating ribbon would work very well as well. And then as we progress further up to the point, as you can see, I have left mostly the budded heads of the spray roses for the top and kept the larger, more open heads down at the base. So that will actually offer you actual and visual weight and balance. You can appreciate if you use the larger heads at the top, not only are you going to have huge difficulty in getting them in, but it's going to look outbalanced. It just won't look right. It does get a little more delicate to place the stems in as you progress to the top. And now we've completed our beautiful tree. You could add fairy lights to elevate the look, especially for an evening setting, because that will give a really magical feel to your table. Now this is a great workshop idea, low cost, easy to adapt and fun to customise with your own style. So if you're going to add LED lights, I would recommend that you make some hairpins with some stub wires. I've used a 71 by 30mm here, and then taking the ivy I'm using on this occasion, but obviously if you've got an LED set of lights, surreptitiously hide your battery pack and then wind the LEDs, or in this case the ivy, around the design and pin it into position in strategic places. Now, because that ivy is quite springy, I'm going to bend the ends of the hairpin back, so that actually creates force against the ivy to stop the ivy from pulling the hairpin out of the floral foam. It creates an anchor, if you like. I'm trying to push it through an ivy leaf there. Try that again. There we go. And then you can add further pieces to graduate all the way around if you'd like to. So almost as though you were adding tinsel to the tree. So if you wanted to go for more of a winter wonderland themed design and you were using white roses, just be very cautious about how you handle them. They are so sensitive to bruising, so pushing against the heads is going to cause them to go brown, and they'll discolour very, very quickly, not look quite so attractive. So ideally leave that to the very last moment before you construct. White chrysanthemums, however, are much more forgiving, but yeah, roses are very temperamental with bruising. And then finally, using my wire cutters, we've constructed a little star out of aluminium wire. I'm going to pop that into the top. And there you have it, our beautiful fresh plant materials Christmas tree, suitable for your dining table. Might offer something different this year rather than your traditional long low arrangement or posy arrangement. So I'm just going to show you how to finish the one that we've made here. So I've pre-wired all of the green whole oranges, and you just, again, exactly the same way as we did for the fresh one, you just place them at an angle into the floral foam. And exactly the same with this one at the top. And then any little gaps just fill with more of the spruce. And with the spruce, I'd recommend that you strip the pine needles so you've got a small stem to actually push into the foam so that you've got an easier transition. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this tutorial has inspired you to get a little creative this Christmas. So whether you go for dried fruit, fresh blooms, or a mix of both, these mini trees are such a brilliant way to personalise your festive decorations. Now, if you're hosting a workshop or looking for a fun activity to do with the kids, this is such a great option. It's easy, adaptable, and brings a lovely touch of nature indoors during the festive season. Don't forget to like the video if you've enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel for more floral tutorials, festive ideas, and professional flower advice. Let us know in the comments if you're going to give this a try and tag us into your creations. We'd love to see them. Merry Christmas, and see you in the next one. Bye for now.